ever.
You're listening to Stu's Wrestling Podcast. It's time. Your host, Stu Palmer.
We are back, but this time we are back with the UFC. My former co-host and cousin Chris Hulme loves all things at UFC. He is a staunch UFC MMA man, and it is episode 145 of Stu's Wrestling Podcast. And finally, Chris, we are here. Jon Jones makes his heavyweight debut. I know you've been waiting for so long for this, but an absolute mammoth test taking on Cyril Gane, a man you've been so hot on for so long too, for the world title, for the gold at heavyweight. What have you got to say? What have you got to say? I know you've got plenty to say.
Quite conflicting, really, because we spoke a lot about Cyril Gane when we did Big Fight Weekly, and when we first started, you asked what we keep an eye out for. In our very first episode, I said to you, Cyril Gane, 3 years ago. Then he's climbed the ladder. He's become interim. He fought Francis Ngannou for the title last year, didn't he? And quite, a lot of people say it's quite dubious decision win for Francis Ngannou in that fight. But he's gotten better, and his fight against Tai Tuivasa, who was super hot at the time, made mincemeat of him. He did get caught, of course, because Tai Tuivasa hits extremely hard. But it's very conflicting because obviously I've spoke so highly about Cyril Gane, and then we go to Jon Jones, who is the GOAT. He's the best fighter to grace UFC, not as a Tito or a Chuck Liddell or a Ken Shamrock or an Anderson Silva, but I mean someone who's been nurtured by the UFC as a youngster and built a legacy within UFC. This is what I mean by saying the best that UFC's had. I don't mean by a legendary status as a fighter who already has an establishment already, but this guy's grown in the UFC. And I'm conflicted. I'm conflicted because I like both fighters. And, I'm wanting to see Jon Jones in this next level for a long time. They've spoke about Jon Jones going up to heavyweight for so long, and now it's here. I'm excited to see where it goes. And can Jon Jones translate all the skill set he's developed at like heavyweight to heavyweight, and can he take a punch from a heavyweight? These are the questions that are going to be answered. People are saying, well, Cyril Gane doesn't hit hard. Well, he does. Just ask Tai Tuivasa when he dropped him in the last fight. Just ask Derek Lewis when he finished him. Tai Tuivasa struggled with the output that Cyril Gane give out. Can Jon Jones take the output that Cyril Gane comes in? Because it's not just knockout punches. He sets a lot of things up between his knees, his elbows, uses takedowns, which obviously going to be a different story with Jon Jones being a wrestler as well. It's just so many fundamentals going into this, and I'm excited to see it. And I'm obviously excited to see what Jon Jones we're going to get, because we haven't seen a perfect Jon Jones, have we, for quite a while. His last two fights at light heavyweight were very hit and miss.
So it's a long time out, isn't it? And I just say Cyril Gane as well. Cyril Gane moves. He moves like a middleweight. He's pacey, man. He's got speed, hasn't he? Which a lot of guys don't have up there. And I tell you what, Jon Jones. If I just put the graphic up here, Chris, this is the latest Vegas odds that I've got. Obviously, that could change leading up to tomorrow. It's very tight on the Vegas odds there, isn't it, Chris? But people, Jones is just edging it. Does that surprise you?
No, because you got to remember, Jon Jones fought 12 years worth of title fights. Cyril Gane has only had one title fight. If you class interim, then yes, he's had two. But an actual title fight against a champion, he's had one. But Jon Jones has had 12 years worth of title fights. I think they're looking at his experience, isn't it? And Jon Jones, pretty much out of most champions in the UFC, has got the most title fighting experience, and he's been in with a lot of killers. But I do get what you mean with Cyril Gane. He does move around a lot quicker.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. You get guys like this, though, don't you? Just book the trend, as it were. And they're athletes and all that. He's he's limber. He's limber, but I should say, look how multifaceted Jon Jones is. But then, in the same token, as you said, what Cyril Gane brings to the game, yes, striking superb, but both guys multifaceted. But then I'm taking what you're saying about look how many championship fights Jon Jones has had. And he fought the creme de la creme in that division.
He did, yeah.
And he would have had more fights, Chris, than he's had his personal stuff not occurred. So, yeah, I'm like you. I'm like you, especially going up. But what a test. But it just goes to show, doesn't it, the type of guy Jon Jones is, going straight in at the deep end.
Well, he has to go at the deep end. You couldn't have him against no one other than the champion. At the end of the day, Jon Jones was a champion 3 years ago. Love him or hate him, he dominated 205. He beat the best of the best. He beat an on-form Daniel Cormier enough times and finished Daniel Cormier. Yes, that got chalked off, but, you know, he did finish Daniel Cormier, and Daniel Cormier at that point was extremely hot, and he was beating everyone when Jon Jones was away. So Jon Jones came away and 12 months after beat Daniel Cormier. It's like I say, it's so many fundamentals, and there's so much, like, my head, the clog is going back and forward, and it's like you try and envision where things are going to go. Jon Jones has probably one of the best fight IQs I think I've ever seen in a long, long time in mixed martial arts. He knows what to throw. He knows what's damaging. He knows when to take you down. He knows how to dirty box. And the guy also, don't forget, Stuart, when he fought Glover Teixeira, and Glover Teixeira at that time, before obviously Glover Teixeira won the title last year, was the bad man. People were scared of his striking. And what did Jon Jones do, Stuart? Took him right up it and fought him at the striking range, dirty boxing up against the cage, and destroyed Glover Teixeira, minus the eye pokes. But, you know, that Jon Jones loves his eye pokes. And unfortunately, that's one of them that caught Glover, that really changed about for him. But this is what Jon Jones can do. And this is why he's so experienced, egotistical, doesn't give a shit. And he'll fight someone at their best just to prove a point. Maybe I think heavyweight might not be the best because one punch can change a fight at heavyweight. And you've seen that enough times over the years. But I think Cyril Gane can move out the way of things and really frustrate Jon Jones in those areas where Jon Jones can't just push him up against the cage and unleash elbows or really tighten punches. Cyril Gane can pivot and use his legs, his long legs, to move around the cage to make Jon Jones work hard. These, like I keep saying, it's the fundamentals of how challenging this is going to be for Jon Jones. Yes, he has, as we've said, he's been a champion for a very long time, hasn't fought for a very long time. In those 3 years, he's been off learning and getting better and moving himself up to heavyweight. Cyril Gane has jumped on the scene and changed the way I think people look at heavyweights. You know what I mean? They only see heavyweight Stuart as power punches and then they gas out. Cyril Gane doesn't do things like that. He does knock you out though, but what I mean is he's changed the game. Him and like Tom Aspinall are the different style heavyweights we're seeing now that are coming through.
It's amazing. It is amazing. I just think causing it's just like there's questions, isn't there? And they won't be answered. They won't be answered until, the first punch is thrown, or is he going to try and take him down? On both sides here, on both sides. Do you think ring rust, octagon rust will come into play for Jon Jones, or is that not a factor? The man, the caliber of Jon Jones, experience, or do you think he could be rusty, Chris? Obviously, he's been training, for quite some time, getting ready for this. But will ring rust be a factor? I'd like to ask you that.
I don't. With elite Stuart, we all just speak about elite fighters, but then I'm talking about elite fighters. I don't think it does. I think it's just a saying, and I think it's an excuse that a lot of fighters use out there when they've been out the game for too long. But I mean, if you look at Jon Jones, he hasn't fought, but he's been training, he's been learning, he's been in with a lot of big men, former UFC heavyweights. Okay, some of them didn't really reach high echelons of the division, but the big guys, you know what I mean, are going to push him and really pull their weight on him, and to get that understanding of the heavyweight division and heavyweight fighters. I don't think it's going to be a problem for him. I think, as you say, again, it's experience. I think that's going to tell in this fight, but it's the difference of a fighter. People say, and I think he's even come out and said, "Oh, Thiago Santos, when I fought him, is a better kickboxer, hits harder, etc., etc." That's at light heavyweight. Now you're taking someone who like Thiago Santos and moving him up to heavyweight. where punching power is a lot more devastating than it is at 205. And, Jon Jones isn't notoriously known for knocking people out. He's known for numbers and takedowns, flashy spinning back kicks, spinning elbows, suplexes like he did to the late, great Stephen Bonner when he was bursting on the scene. I don't think you can do that to a heavyweight. The flashy side of the strikes, yes, but I mean by he's not going to pick Cyril Gane up and suplex him to the ground. He's got to have to change his approach. And, he has been getting caught. He got caught a lot by Dominic Reyes, didn't he, in his last fight?
Some people had Reyes winning that fight. It was very much akin to Gustafsson, the first fight, wasn't it?
I agree.
I remember you telling me at the time, this is you could have made a case for Reyes in the same token as Gustafsson all them years ago, one of the greatest fights ever.
Yeah.
That's one of them. So, yeah, quite right, as you've said. Chris, I've got to ask you now, will it go the full 5? Not many fights at heavyweight do. If I had to press you for a prediction?
I don't see Jon Jones finishing Cyril Gane. I think it's going to take a lot to get someone like Cyril Gane out of there, because he uses a lot of skill set. In the case, what I'm trying to say is he uses a lot of his length, he uses his kicks, he uses his speed, he uses his movement. I think, if Francis Ngannou, who's probably one of the hardest hitters in the world, can't get Cyril Gane out of the octagon, and he did catch Cyril Gane, and Cyril Gane did take him. I think it goes back to what Ngannou did to Cyril Gane, which shocked everyone, and he used wrestling. And I think no one's really any better than Jon Jones at using collegiate wrestling and MMA wrestling to stifle his opponent and then beat him on the ground. I think if this fight's to finish, I think Jon Jones has got to probably submit him. I can't see him knocking Cyril Gane out. So for me, I'd probably go, if I'm pushed, probably unanimous decision to Jon Jones. Because I think if he uses his experience and his IQ that he has, he can just pick and chip away at Cyril Gane and take him down, frustrate him that way, and pick his shots. Because I know the pressure is on Jon Jones in this fight, but he thrives on that. Cyril Gane's not fought anyone like Jon Jones. He's fought Ngannou, but he hasn't fought someone who can work you out and use angles that you've never seen before. You can watch him all on the TV and you can play him on the game, but actually fighting Jon Jones and working him out was a whole different ball game.
A puzzle, quite the puzzle, and that, like you say, you're not taking anything away from Cyril Gane, because on his day he can do something. But yeah, I think you're veering towards Jones. I think,
but we haven't seen Jon Jones take a punch from a heavyweight yet.
No, and this is what we want, man. This is what you want before, obviously, early hours Sunday morning for us. This is what gets you excited, because it's the unknown, isn't it? And we've got to see something happen, and then where does the fight go then? But yeah, I think Jones just slightly ahead with the bookies. That may change closer, but it's the name value as well, isn't it? Again,
I think when you think of fighters that have done so much in the business, Jon Jones is the first name, one of the first names you think about, just because of what he's done. Anderson Silva, yes, made records, beating everybody. Tito and Chuck did the same. But when we look at light heavyweight, and yes, and Tito and Chuck are fixated in that division, you don't think of Chuck and Tito and what they did. You think of what Jon Jones did and the opponents he beat and how long he kept that title.
Machida, Shogun, when they were at peak, they were probably at peak, weren't they, when he took them on?
He was only in his 20s, don't forget, when he fought Shogun.
Fantastic fighters, but he made them look ordinary. They are world-class fighters. And as you say, the list is so long, and he always managed to find a way. Just he could adapt, couldn't he? Bar Gustafsson and Reyes, I think all the other fights, unless you can, you're triggered there and you can remember, they were the closest to, weren't they? Or has he had another couple where you thought, oh, that was tight?
No, I think like Thiago Santos was a challenging one for him, because it was the first time he fought anyone at his sort of height. Yeah. But don't forget, like, Thiago Santos blew his ACL and I think another ligament in his leg during that fight. But he was causing problems with his leg kicks because he was very fast with those leg kicks, wasn't he, Thiago Santos, before that injury? I think he struggled with that, but he still won the fight in typical Jon Jones way. Used his IQ, used his pot shotting.
Do you think that would be maybe like the blueprint for Cyril Gane, watching what Santos did in terms of that, or does that not come into it?
I think you can pick bits out of all the fights that Jon Jones has had. It's only towards the latter stages of his 205 sort of career that he got a bit lazier. I think it's hard to say lazy. I think that's a bit of a horrible term to put it. I think he got bored at light heavyweight because he beat everyone and he was rematching people, and the whole cloud over his head was, "Oh, you going up to heavyweight?" And he's done the right thing in a way, though, Stuart. He has transitioned his body,
and he's not rushed. He's not rushed it, has he, by any stretch? Because
he's taking his time.
We were talking about this like maybe 2 years ago was probably the earliest time, wasn't it? When you were saying he is getting ready to do it. So he's really took the time, hasn't he? You think when he came in, how young he was, and in terms of he's still got the years ahead of him, hasn't he? Because he's been around so long.
He has, and he's fought the best of the best. We're going on about him moving up, and I've seen people, complain about his physique because he's not. There's a picture you pulled up before.
Yeah. I'll bring it up as you're talking.
But it's such a different weight. You see, that's Jon Jones at say 205, and that's Jon Jones at 250.
Yeah, thicker.
And he said the other day is if this was a bodybuilding, match, it'd be an issue. But it's not. He goes, I'll figure out in my next fight about shredding down. Listen, not a lot of fighters go up at 205 and are completely ripped in a six-packs. They all can't look like Francis Ngannou or Chet Congo for another one. You look like an absolute superhero, But none of them, apart from Ngannou, none of them actually were at 250. 250 is quite big. Usually you're looking, for like the Ganes in the Miocic, you're looking at like what, 240? Maybe just into 230s. Don't really see them go up to the 250, 260. Sort of,
they keep it. They don't go too big, do they?
It's the same counting. On his that he can still move.
Yeah.
Twice as fast at 250, and if he can move like himself at 250 pounds, that's another like a holy shit moment. You know what I mean? Because it's a lot of weight to carry.
Chris, obviously, in closing, are we looking at a 5 a.m. start, R5 start in the UK for the main event? Obviously, depending on undercard and times and stuff like that. Are we saying about a 5 o'clock, R5 start tomorrow night?
I think you are. I think. Shevchenko and Grosso, depending on what Shevchenko you're going to get. If you're getting the one that wants to finish you very quickly and get you out of there, that fight, you're looking at. You could look at R4 maybe. But I think that fight's going to be close as well. Shevchenko and Grosso.
They'll put footage in if they've got time to play with.
No, I think
they'll do a build, won't they? Leading into it.
I think you're probably looking at 5:30, aren't you? Usually the main event, especially over here, is usually about that time, and in the UK. So, but you just don't know, as you say, fights move so fast. It's not like boxing. When a fight finishes, they just fill a load of crap, don't they, before the next fight to keep the timing. When UFC, when a fight finishes early, it's quickly into the next.
Absolutely.
Shout out to Ian Gary as well, who's fighting on the card again.
Oh, is he? Is he on the? What's he on prelims?
He's on the prelims.
I look forward to that, mate.
There you go, Stuart. He's early prelim, but the early prelim card's quite stacked actually. So he's the main event for the early prelims before the prelim card. Kobe Garbrandt's on there, Stuart, as well.
It's going to be a stellar night, obviously. Typified by the main event that we're finally getting. It's going to be Jon Jones and Cyril Gane for the heavyweight. It's for all the marbles tomorrow night, and we can't wait. And Chris, thanks again for coming on.
That's fine.
We'll have the review, and I can't wait. And as we say, I'm just going to ask you one more time. If I have to press you,
go on.
who comes out on top. Maybe just throw a round in before we go.
Right. I'm gonna go because I have to, because I've just seen it enough. I think Jon Jones unanimous decision win. I think he's just IQ Stewart. I think he's gonna. He might lose a round, but I just think he's once he gets hold of Cyril Gane, I think Cyril Gane's gonna struggle because like I said, if Francis and Gane can take him down, and now you're fighting someone who can actually wrestle
with elite level wrestling. Yeah.
Yes,
it's
but it's still tangible because I could be wrong, and Cyril Gane might hit him on.
I know how much I like Cyril Gane. I know.
Yeah, I don't want to go against him. It hurts me to go against him.
And it's fantastic. Another European fighter up there. You know, he's fantastic. He's different. But yeah, we cannot wait for tomorrow night. So we reckon about 5:30 in the UK, Sunday morning. America, obviously it's in Vegas. And yeah, we look forward to it. And I can't wait to review it with you, Chris. Next week, and we'll be able to talk about all the good stuff after. Lovely, jubbly. Thank you once again, Chris Hulme, for coming on Stu's Wrestling Podcast.
Appreciate it.
Big Fight Weekly onus on a huge night tomorrow night in Vegas. Thanks for coming on, man.
Appreciate it, mate.
Take care, pal.